Father chose his new wife over me after their quick marriage, and I tried to stay quiet until I found messages showing she planned to take control of our house, and I had to decide whether to confront them or leave everything. I sat on the back steps of our small house in Rainton, a quiet place in northern Ohio, when I realized something in my life had shifted in a way I could not name yet. I was 37 at the time, working as a tech support supervisor, the kind of job where you talk to strangers all day and pretend you are not tired, but you always are. My father, Lauren, was 59, and he had always been a steady man who moved slow and talked slow and never acted like the world owed him anything. My mother passed when I was 22. People say it gets easier, but that idea never did anything for me. It just became a fact I carried, like a scar I did not point out. After she passed, it was just me and my father. He stayed quiet most days, and I tried to give him space. I thought we understood each other without talking. Maybe that was just what I wanted to believe. When he told me he was seeing someone, I remember thinking it was fine and natural, but the speed of it all caught me off guard. Her name was Elira, 34, not someone I had ever seen in town before. She had moved from a city outside the state, and my father met her at a community cooking class he had joined to keep himself busy. He told me this while cutting vegetables in the kitchen one night. I remember the way he said it, not shy, but careful, like he was stepping into new ground and wanted me to be gentle with it. I tried to be. I nodded and told him I was glad he had someone to talk to. I meant it at the time. But even then I felt something tighten in me, like a warning in my chest. I told myself it was my own issue and nothing else. My father had been alone a long time. He deserved someone who cared about him. That is what I kept saying. Time moved fast after that. They started seeing each other every week. She came over for dinners. She helped him fix small things in the house. She asked many questions about him, about me, about our family history. I thought at first that she was curious. People who want to belong usually are. But sometimes her questions felt too pointed, as if she worked from a list that someone had given her. I brushed it off. I did not want to sound paranoid even to myself. 3 months passed. They got married during a quick trip to a courthouse in another county. I only found out because he called me 2 days after the fact. I remember the heaviness in my ears as he talked, like the sound could not reach me right. I congratulated him. I tried to be polite. After the call, I sat alone in my car for a long time, wondering why he did not wait, or ask me, or even tell me beforehand. I had not been angry in years. That day I felt something close to it. The marriage changed the house. I had lived with my father to help with bills and repairs. I covered most of the groceries. I handled all the home tech. Our system worked. After she moved in, it shifted. She started making decisions in the house even though she had only stayed there for a few weeks. She rearranged his tools. She replaced curtains without asking. She told me I should move my things out of the main bedroom hallway closet because she needed the space for her clothes. I did it because arguing felt pointless. My father seemed happy, or at least convinced he should be. One night he told me that he and Elira wanted more privacy, and hinted that maybe I should start thinking about getting my own place. The words hit harder than I expected. That house was all I had left of my mother. Every corner carried a piece of her. Leaving was like erasing her. I tried to stay quiet about my feelings. I kept telling myself I could accept whatever made him feel alive again. But things only got stranger. While cleaning the living room, I found her phone lying on the couch. A message popped up on the screen. I swear I was not trying to snoop. It just lit up in front of me. The message preview showed only part of it, but it was enough. It said, "Keep checking the documents. Once you have control of the house, move fast." I remember staring at it, not breathing, feeling the skin on my arms go cold. Control of the house. That was our family home. The place my mother filled with her voice and her cooking and her old records. I felt like someone was reaching into my chest and taking something from me while smiling at me at the same time. I opened the phone because I could not stop myself. There were more messages. They talked about pushing me out. About convincing my father that I needed to be independent. About signing papers when he was in a good mood. There was even a message about how she thought I would not fight back because I was too loyal to him. My hands were shaking. Not from anger at first. From disbelief. It felt unreal that someone could smile at me every morning and write these things at night. My father trusted her. He trusted people too easily sometimes. She knew that. Part of me wanted to walk into the kitchen that moment and confront them. Another part of me felt small and tired and unsure if I would only make things worse for him. I kept thinking about the way he looked at her, like she gave him hope. I did not want to break that. But I did not want to lose the only home I ever knew. That night I sat in my room, the door closed, the house quiet, and I thought about whether I should tell him or just disappear before everything got worse. I did not sleep that night at all because every time I closed my eyes I saw the words from those messages in my head, and they felt like hands grabbing at my life. I kept hearing my father's voice from years back when he would tell me that the house was our anchor, and that as long as we had it we would always have a place to call our own. I thought about my mother's old quilts in the closet and the faded paint on the porch that she always promised she would touch up one day. I wondered what she would think if she knew what was happening. Around 6 in the morning I heard footsteps in the hall. It was my father getting up early like he always did. He used to make coffee in the quiet before work and I would sometimes join him even when I was little because I liked being near him. Now I sat on my bed thinking about how far we felt from each other and how I did not know how to bridge that space. I heard Elira's voice next. She spoke softly but something in her tone made my stomach twist. She always talked to him like she was guiding him, not loving him. I stayed in my room until they went into the backyard. Then I walked into the living room and looked at her phone again, but she had taken it with her. For the next hour I paced across the floor thinking about how people lose things without anyone noticing. Some people lose jobs or friends. I was losing trust in the only parent I had left. Around 9 I left the house and drove to Milford, a nearby town where I used to go when I needed to breathe. I got a coffee from a small shop and sat near the window watching people talk and laugh, and move through life without the weight that was sitting on me. I kept asking myself why my father chose her so quickly. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe he had been lonely longer than I understand. Parents hide more than we think. I saw it with my mother before she died. She would smile through the day and cry at night, thinking no one could hear her. I used to stand outside their bedroom door and listen to her breathing. Now I wondered how long my father had been living behind a quiet wall, and if I was too caught up in my own life to notice. I stayed in Milford till noon, then drove home because avoiding the problem made the problem grow inside my chest. When I walked into the house, I found my father at the kitchen table eating a sandwich. He smiled in a warm way that made the pain sharper because I knew what he did not know. Elira was in the living room putting books on the shelves like she owned the place. I told myself to breathe slow. I sat across from my father and asked how he was doing. He said he felt good, that having someone around helped him feel young again. I nodded, but inside I felt something collapse. I wanted to protect him, but I also wanted to shake him awake. Elira walked into the kitchen and touched his shoulder lightly, and he looked up at her like she was some bright answer to a question he never said out loud. That was the moment I knew that confronting both of them at once would explode everything. She already had too much influence over him. I had to be careful. I had to think. That afternoon I went into the attic where we keep old things, looked for the folder that held the house papers. My father kept everything in labeled boxes, but I noticed that the box that used to hold the house documents was missing. I searched for 20 minutes and finally found the lid of the box shoved behind an old trunk, but the box itself was not there. A pulse of panic shot through me. I went to the closet in the spare room next, searching. Nothing. I went to the small office to see if anything was there, too. Nothing. I walked into the hallway, trying to keep my voice from shaking as I asked my dad where he put the house folder. He looked confused, saying that he didn't remember moving it. Then Elira said she saw the box, but thought it looked cluttered, so she put it somewhere safer. When I asked her where that was, she gave a small smile, saying that she would find it later because she was in the middle of something. Something inside me broke. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore, the control that she had over us. I walked away before I said something I would regret. I stood near the tree in the yard my mom planted when I was 10, putting my hand on the bark as my legs shook. I wasn't a kid anymore, but I felt like one watching adults rearrange his world without permission. I needed advice, but the only person I trusted enough to call was my cousin Ren. We were the same age and grew up like brothers. He lived in another state now, but he picked up on the second ring. I told him everything, every message, every detail. He was silent for a long time, then said something that froze me. He said people who move so fast like that usually have a plan in motion long before you see it. He said to be smart, gather proof, because if things go ugly, I might need it. After the call, I sat in my car wondering what proof even looked like when the enemy lived in the same house. I stayed out until dark, then returned home to find them watching a movie like everything was normal. I went to my room and locked the door. Tomorrow I would have to decide what came next. My life wasn't steady anymore. It was some fragile thing that could break if I chose wrong. I woke up the next morning with a feeling that something was moving around me that I could not see, like the ground under me was shifting in small ways that would add up later. I sat on the edge of my bed and tried to breathe normally because I knew I needed a clear head if I was going to handle this without blowing my life apart. I kept thinking about what Rin said about proof. I hated that I needed proof against my own father's wife, but the messages showed what she was capable of. I walked into the kitchen and found them both already there eating breakfast. My father smiled at me and asked if I slept all right. I lied and said yes. Elira looked at me with a polite smile that did not reach her eyes. I could not shake the image of her texting someone about taking the house. I poured myself coffee and sat down, pretending that the tension inside me was nothing more than tiredness. For a moment I wondered if I should confront her privately, but I knew she would twist it and make it seem like I was attacking her. She always used this quiet tone that made my father feel protective of her. It would only push him further away from me. I needed something solid. After breakfast I waited until she left for a grocery run. My father said she liked choosing things herself because it made her feel at home. I nodded and then casually asked him if he remembered where the house folder was because there were some things I wanted to double check. He frowned and said he truly did not remember. His confusion felt real, and that scared me because it meant she was moving faster than I thought. When she returned an hour later, she acted like everything was normal. She hummed while unpacking the bags. I watched her carefully. There was a confidence in her movements, like someone who already felt secure in her position. The kind of confidence that comes from knowing the person on your side will choose you, even if you are wrong. I waited until evening, then went into the spare room again. I searched every drawer, every box, every cabinet. I did not find the house documents, but I found something else. In a drawer under a stack of scarves that did not belong to my father, I found a thin envelope with my father's handwriting on it. It looked old. When I opened it, I found a letter my mother wrote before she died. It was addressed to both of us. Inside she wrote about wanting us to take care of each other, and that the house should always stay in the family, and we should make decisions together. Reading it felt like someone had pulled a memory out of my chest and placed it into my hands. I sat on the floor holding that letter and felt tears in my eyes, not from weakness but from the weight of what she trusted us to protect. I knew then that leaving without a fight would betray her. That understanding cut through the confusion and replaced it with something steadier. I put the letter into my pocket and walked downstairs. I almost confronted them right then, but they were watching a documentary together, and my father looked relaxed for the first time in days. I could not ruin that moment. I had to wait. That night I searched for the messages again, but she kept her phone with her. I heard her talking softly in the bedroom. I could not make out the words, but the tone was the same one she used when she tried to guide my father. She spoke like she wanted control, not partnership. The next morning I made a plan. I told them I was heading out to run errands. Then I drove to Ren's old contact, someone who handled real estate records in the county office. Her name was Kaylin, a woman around 42 with a serious voice and eyes that missed nothing. I told her I wanted to check the official status of the property. She looked it up and told me nothing had changed, but she also said something that tightened my entire body. Someone had requested information about transferring ownership 2 weeks earlier. The request was not made by me or by my father. She showed me the name of the person who sent the inquiry. It was Elira. I thanked Kaylin and walked back to my car with my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. It confirmed everything. She was preparing to take the house. She was not guessing or planning in theory. She was already in motion. I drove home slowly because my head was full of noise and I needed to think before I walked through that door. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a long time. The house looked smaller from the outside. It looked tired. It looked like a piece of my childhood standing in front of danger that it did not understand. When I finally walked inside, I found my father napping on the couch. Elira was in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room, staring at me like she knew something was different. I told her I needed to speak with my father later. She smiled and said she would let him rest. Her tone felt wrong. Too calm. Too prepared. I went to my room and read my mother's letter again. Her words pushed me forward. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table and waited for my father to come in. When he did, I asked him if we could talk without interruptions. He agreed. I took a long breath and told him everything I had seen. The messages. The missing documents. The inquiry at the county office. He looked overwhelmed and confused. Before he could speak, Elira walked in and asked what we were talking about. I told her to sit because this involved her. My voice was calm, but inside I felt like I was burning. This was the moment that would shape everything that came next, and there was no turning back now. I watched her sit down across from us with a look that tried to appear confused, but I had been watching her long enough to know when she was acting. My father looked back and forth between us, waiting for someone to speak first, so I did. I told her that I knew about the inquiry she made at the county office, and I kept my voice steady because I did not want this to become a shouting match that could be twisted into something it was not. She blinked slowly and said she had no idea what I was talking about. I told her I had the records and that the timing matched the sudden disappearance of the house documents from the attic. She gave a small laugh, the kind people use when they want to make you feel unreasonable, and she said I must have misunderstood something. My father shifted in his seat like he wanted to believe her, but he also wanted to understand why I would bring something like this to him. I took the letter from my pocket and placed it on the table. I told him it was from my mother, and that I found it hidden under belongings that were not his. He stared at the envelope like it was something alive. When he opened it and read her handwriting, his expression changed. His shoulders lowered. He looked older and younger at the same time, as if the weight of the past had pulled him backward and forward. Then he asked her why she made the inquiry. She froze for half a second, and that half second was enough for both of us. She said she only did it because she wanted to help him get his affairs organized and that she was worried about future planning. It sounded smooth, but it did not explain why she hid the house papers. I told my father that I saw her messages. She turned toward me sharply, and I saw fear in her eyes, real fear, the kind someone has when their control slips. She asked me what messages. I repeated her own words back to her, the ones about taking control of the house and making sure she would have the final say in decisions. My father looked at her differently after that. Not angry. Not betrayed. Just awakened. He asked her if she really said those things. She said no, but her voice shook. My father placed the letter on the table gently, and when he spoke again his voice was calm in a way that made the room feel smaller. He told her he needed honesty because this house was not just property. It was our history. It was my mother's memory. It was the ground we lived on when life did not make sense. She tried to recover by saying she was only trying to protect him, but he did not accept that answer. He asked her where the documents were. She said they were in a safe place. I asked again where. She said she would get them. She left the kitchen and walked into the spare room. My father and I followed her. She reached behind the dresser and pulled out the box that had the house papers. She handed it to him without a word. He opened it and made sure everything was still there. Then he looked at her and said that hiding them was not something a partner does. She started crying quietly, and for a moment I wondered if I should step out, but I stayed because this involved me too. She said she had been scared that I would push her out and that she needed to protect herself. She said she wanted security. She said she wanted a future with him, and that the house felt like the symbol of that future. My father closed the box and told her that building a future on fear would destroy everything. He told her that if she wanted to stay in this home, she would have to earn back trust. She wiped her tears and looked at me like I was the obstacle keeping her from getting what she wanted. My father noticed it. He placed his hand on my shoulder and said that this house would always belong to our family, and that included me because I had been here through everything. That was the first time I felt my chest loosen in days. She tried to speak again, but my father said he needed space to think and asked her to stay with her sister for a few days. She resisted at first, but he repeated it. His tone left no room for debate. She packed a small bag and left without looking at me. When the door closed, my father sat on the couch and held the letter in his hands. He said he had been lonely after my mother died and that he wanted to believe someone could fill the silence. He said he rushed into something that blinded him to the things I was trying to protect. I sat beside him and told him I never wanted to make decisions for him. I just wanted him to be safe. We talked for a long time. About life. About timing. About how easy it is to mistake attention for love when you are vulnerable. He apologized for brushing aside my concerns. I apologized for waiting so long to speak up. The house felt quiet in a gentler way that night. Not heavy. Not tense. Just quiet. A few days later he called me into the kitchen and said he had been thinking. He wanted to rewrite the estate documents so everything would be simpler and clearer, so no one could come between us or take away what belonged to the family. I agreed. We did it through an attorney. Everything was handled cleanly. Elira returned a week later for her things. She looked around the house like she was memorizing it. My father wished her well but did not invite her back. When she left a second time, she didn't cry. She just walked out with the same quiet confidence she came in with, except this time without the power. My father and I stood on the porch afterward. He thanked me for not walking away. I told him I almost did, and that scared him. He put his hand on my back the same way he used to when I was a kid that needed reassurance. We stood there in silence, a real silence that did not hide anything. Later that night, I went to the attic and folded my mother's letter into a new envelope. I set it beside the house papers where it belonged. I closed the box, feeling the weight of everything settle in a way that felt right. Life did not return to normal overnight. Trust takes time. But the house felt like home again. Not because nothing changed, but because the truth had been pulled into the light.